We got to get to Dan Patrick, who joins us on the hotline right now. I listened to Dan this morning on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Dan Patrick, thanks for a few minutes, and how are you, my friend?
Good. I apologize. I'm running a little bit late, so I know in this business we plan on people calling in at the right time, so I apologize about that.
No problem at all. And actually, I had a predicament involving you a few years ago, and it wasn't anything you did wrong. It was actually to a situation that I thought to myself, what should I do? When I was in high school, actually, I was at the JW Marriott in Indianapolis, and that was the site of the Super Bowl that year where the Patriots went up against the Giants. And I wasn't staying at the JW Marriott because at the time I was in high school and we were on a low-budget operation, Dan. But I did have dinner that night at this place called Osteria. And I go to the bathroom, and I'm in the urinal, and I look to my left, and who's there? Dan Patrick. So I am a high school guy, and I'm saying, wow, this is one of the superstars in the business. I have to find a way to bring up some conversation. And then that voice in my head kicked in and said, hey, Zach, you're in a bathroom. You don't want to talk to Dan Patrick. I'm sure that you've had many situations, because you're a national name, where fans have tried to talk to you and interact with you with bizarre places. Where's the most bizarre place? And would you have been mad with me if I said hello to you in the bathroom?
I think after you washed your hands, I would have been fine with that. Let's see, when my first daughter was born, I had the doctor and then his intern when they were delivering my daughter, and when she was born, the intern did the Sports Center theme, the da-da-da, da-da-da. So that was a little strange in that moment to have him be singing the Sports Center theme song.
That's some interesting stuff. And today's my first day here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. And you can listen to Dan's show, Dan and all the Danettes, Monday through Friday from 9 to 12. I listen to Dan each and every day. And everyone knows your career, life at ESPN, and now you're doing a great job with the show ever since you left the mothership, like you call it. But let me just wonder a little bit about life with Dan Patrick before ESPN. What were you exactly doing in your start to the industry?
Well, I was doing morning drive radio on a rock and roll station in Dayton, Ohio. I was doing the news, and then I was kind of moonlighting as a sportscaster on the local station, Channel 2 in Dayton, and I was up for the job, the full-time job, to do weekends, and I didn't get it. So at the time, I was 27, and I didn't think I would get into the business, at least sports broadcasting. So I went to Atlanta on a vacation, and I ended up taking a tape with me that had sort of my highlights from being a TV reporter, sports reporter, and I got a job at CNN, and they had me start 2 weeks later. So I didn't get the job in Dayton, Ohio, but I got the job at CNN. So go figure. It's a goofy business, and timing and luck certainly play a role.
Favorite rock and roll band is?
Oh, gosh, probably Led Zeppelin, but I have so many of them. I have a great appreciation for music, and to be able to have seen a lot of those bands, the Stones, the Who, Zeppelin, there's a lot of 1 and 1As and 2s when it comes to the favorite bands of all time for me.
Well, I'm a big Springsteen guy, and I actually have tickets to see The Boss coming up in Philly sometime in September on a Wednesday night. So I'll be done with this show, and then I'll make the trip right back down to Philadelphia, about a 40-minute drive, as we are talking to Dan Patrick today, host of the Dan Patrick Show. And you can also see him on football season on NBC for Football Night in America. He does a tremendous job with Tony Dungy and Rodney Harrison. So Fletcher Cox, that's the big news, as they had the press conference today. He gets a 6-year deal, $103 million with 63 games guaranteed. I've seen Fletcher Cox play every game last season, and he is the real deal. I would say he was an underrated name going into the season, but now when you get $63 million guaranteed, everyone knows your name. What's been the reaction nationally to this Fletcher Cox deal?
Well, I can't speak for too many people. I know my reaction was, that's a lot of money, and are you going to go see Fletcher Cox play? Like, they had to pay somebody on defense, but I understand Von Miller, I understand J.J. Watt. When you're paying that kind of money, and that's the most money guaranteed-wise for a non-quarterback, that's saying a whole lot. So he's got to go from being a good story to an underdog or underrated story to now he's got to be great, not just good. He's got to be great. And I think certain guys react differently. Guys sometimes love that the spotlight is on them and can I get better? Other guys tend to melt a little bit. I don't know his makeup. He's a young kid, but that's a whole lot of money that Philadelphia – and I don't think Philadelphia is ready to win now. That's sort of the strange thing of what exactly does Philadelphia have and what do they need and how close are they in that division? Because the Giants spent a whole lot of money. The Redskins are going to try to prove this wasn't a fluke, and the Cowboys are going to be better. I don't know where Philadelphia stands in the pantheon there of the NFC East, but it just seems like a team that's not quite sure what kind of team they are, what's their personality. And maybe Fletcher Cox gives them a little bit of that on defense, but I still have a whole lot of doubt about that team.
If you had to rank the 4 teams in the NFC East, and I know it's early, but that's what we'd like to do as talk show hosts, where would you rank these 4 teams right now from 1 to 4?
Oh, now I bought into the Redskins last year prior to the season. I thought that they were a playoff team. Dallas was a playoff team, and then they had the injuries. The Giants I did not think were a playoff team, and the Eagles, I thought that they would border on being a playoff team. So, with the dust that's kind of settled here, I'm going to stay with Washington because they proved it. I think the Giants, they brought in a lot there. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. With the Eagles, you had the dream team. That didn't work out. I'm always leery when you're bringing in big personnel with big paychecks. I probably have Philadelphia 4th in the division. I just expect Dallas to be, offensively, they're going to be really good. And, I just don't know what they have defensively. But we've seen teams that have a good offense or bordering on a great offense can make up for a suspect defense. I'd probably go Washington, New York, Dallas, and then Philly.
So with this market, we have to cover both Philadelphia and New York sports as we're in Princeton. It's kind of like a melting pot for both of those markets in New York and Philadelphia. So we talk about one guy that is elated today in a Fletcher Cox. Now let's go to a guy that's disgruntled in a Muhammad Wilkerson. There's 2 young guys also on that roster at the defensive line position. I just don't think this deal's going to get done, Dan. I don't think Muhammad Wilkerson's going to be a Jet that much longer.
Well, he's quite a talent. That he just and once again, this is a team that doesn't even have their quarterback yet. And when you have these ancillary issues, and maybe it's not even fair to say ancillary, because he's a really important part of that defense. And they build around that defense. They've spent money on that defense, high draft picks on that defense, Revis's contract. So it's imperative to have him in there. He's one of those guys with that long wingspan. He's just such a difference maker there. And I do think the Jets are built to do something this year. You have your wide receivers. They have talent there. You have a running back. It's just a question of Geno Smith is not going to be the guy to lead them, I don't think. But the pieces are there. So if you don't have him, that's a big blow. It's a big blow, certainly in that division, where the other teams have spent money, and the Patriots are going to be the Patriots. So that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt an awful lot with that team.
Spending a few more minutes with Dan Patrick. You listen to Dan on this station Monday through Friday from 9 to 12. Dan and the Danettes do a spectacular job. You don't need my endorsement for that. But I will say this. Let's get to the NBA Finals. Tonight, LeBron in a Game 6 at home. Him and Kyrie had a tremendous Game 5. LeBron in his career in the NBA Finals. I did the numbers. He's averaging 26.8 points per game, 10.1 rebounds per game, and 7.1 assists. Some of the pressure he's put on himself, but has there been an athlete in the history of sports that's been under more pressure than LeBron James? Because, Dan, you know this. If he loses tonight, everyone's going to have those crying Jordan memes all over the internet.
Well, he's brought a lot of this attention onto himself, so you can say pressure, but he's added pressure to this by the different scenarios he's created when he went to Miami and then when he came back to Cleveland. I'm a big fan of his. I have a problem sometimes with what he says or his personality, just kind of quirky at times. But I've followed the game since 1970, so I've seen them all come and go. And he's a rare breed. It just really is incredible to watch him. But to see a guy who's wired to make others better, but we expect our athletes to be selfish and go out there and get theirs, to go out there and score. And he's not wired that way. So when he gets 41, we just say, why didn't he do that? He should do that every game. He's not wired that way. He just doesn't think that way. Magic Johnson was able to plug into it occasionally when he had to. But here's LeBron, where somebody's going to expect him to get 35 or 40 tonight. He doesn't go out, and Michael Jordan knew he was programmed to go out and kill you. He was this is what I do, and I'm going to do it to you. LeBron goes out to do something different, and then now he's asked to turn it on and do something different. It's not as easy as you think, because you see the court a different way when you're selfish. But I do think that he and Kyrie have to combine for 50 shots tonight. Whether they make them or not, they have to, because I can't count on anybody else on that roster. So it's imperative LeBron is a little bit selfish, because if not, then these other guys are taking shots and forcing shots, and I'd rather have Kyrie and LeBron taking those shots than I would Richard Jefferson or J.R. Smith or whoever else they want to throw in there. That's the real challenge. Golden State has 5 guys who you'd be fine if they took 15 shots. Some guys you would have to take 25 shots. What a luxury. Cleveland does not have that luxury. So LeBron has got a lot of pressure, even if he loses tonight. Like, he already stepped up in the last game. That was huge, I think. We'll look back on that game with his legacy that you won in Golden State, staving off elimination in one of the great games that we've seen in recent memory. You want to have a great game at home, but even if Cleveland loses, which we expect them to do, the series, I don't think it'll be as big with LeBron because of that performance in Game 5. But I do think there'll be changes in the offseason with that roster.
And a big thing for the Warriors tonight is they get back Draymond Green. And if you're the Cavs, you hope Green gets in foul trouble with Bogut no longer being there because of the injury. And also for the Cavs, they're going to need Love to show up tonight because he has not been good in these finals. But like you were saying, I know you're a big basketball fan. You've been watching the sport for a long time. In hour number 1 of the debut show of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey, we had on John Starks. And I asked him the question, who would win, Jordan's Bulls or Steph's Warriors? And he said it would be Jordan's Bulls. What say you, Dan Patrick?
Oh, yeah, yes. Because of the perimeter defense that the Bulls would play. And there's nobody like, there hasn't been anybody like the Bulls with that perimeter defense. I think the bad boys of the Pistons would beat Golden State. I think there's a few teams that would beat them. And even if you're playing today's rules, if you're playing today's rules with Golden State, we've seen what Steph and Clay can do. But we've not seen what Jordan could do with today's rules. We have not seen what Isaiah and Joe Dumars could do. We have not seen what Larry Bird would do or Magic Johnson would do. So for everybody who says, well, if you're playing by today's rules, yep, we know what Steph and Clay are going to do. You have no idea what kind of hell Michael Jordan would unleash on the defense. He would average 40 a game if he wanted to. So factor that in. Pippen's going to be on lockdown mode with somebody. Dennis Rodman's going to be on lockdown mode and would love to play against Draymond Green. So I think the Bulls would beat Golden State. But it's not to diminish. We always feel like, oh, you know what, these old-time people can't accept what's happening now. I love what I see now. If they repeat, it's a great story. And I love Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. They're two of the greatest. That's the best shooting backcourt in the history of the game, which is saying a whole lot. So I do acknowledge them, but I've also seen the other teams. It's not like I didn't see even the 72-73 Lakers. I got to see them in person. I got to see the Knicks. That Knicks team was so good of the 70s with Frazier, and Bradley and DeBusschere and all those, Willis Reed. These were all really good teams. Even the Celtics in the 60s, Zach, the way they played with those athletes they had on the perimeter and Bill Russell there, and they had so much depth there, they would give Golden State, and granted, it's apples to oranges here with it, but that style, that philosophy, that defense, their ability to play and run, that would be fun to watch as well. So it's not just, hey, there's only one other team that you can put in with Golden State. There's a lot of teams you can put in with Golden State. They're involved in the conversation, and that's a great tribute to them. There have been a lot of teams that have played this game, and they belong in there with the greats that we've seen over a 2-year period.
Well, Dan, we appreciate the time today, and hopefully we'll see you at the Super Bowl in Houston this year. And hopefully for me, it's not in a bathroom and it's somewhere else, and I get to say hello to you.
If it is, Zach, just wait, wash your hands, wait outside, and then we can have a conversation.
Sounds good. Dan, we'll be listening tomorrow on the Dan Patrick Show, Monday through Friday from 9 to 12. Dan, thanks so much for the time today.
Good luck. Good luck, Zach.